Big Mountain has Big Ten and Mountain West transfer updates.
The transfer portal is back in the news, so we're back to keep you updated on the Big Mountain.
Hey, it's good to have you here. I am JY. This is my good friend Steve. If you're new to the Mountain, we cover all things Mountain West and Big Ten. We've also been on the Pac-12 for quite a while. We're starting to get into the FSU and ACC and Big Ten ongoings, but this episode will be about the transfer portal. I know Steve has some things he wants to talk about with the Big Ten. I have some things I want to talk about with the Mountain West. We may sprinkle on some other things as well, but let's start with you, Steve. What do you have for us with the Big Ten?
Yeah, I want to roll right in. So the Big Ten hasn't been super active in the portal over this kind of holiday break. You know, we saw some action. We already talked about in early December, right when the portal opened. Yep. Kind of went quiet, but there were some things over the holidays that really stood out to me. Okay. Wanted to bring up. The first one, you know, we talked about JMU coach, the former IUP coach, Signetti, yeah, going from JMU to Indiana. Mm-hmm. You know, you mentioned JMU had a ton of opt-outs or whatever. Yep. Well, we've seen where those guys are going. They're following them to Indiana. So on one day, I think it was on December 24th, we had 7 transfers from JMU to Indiana. Lots of offensive linemen, defensive linemen, I think a running back. So that was just a big bulk transfer all at one time. I'm sure, you know, for him to hit the ground running there, he probably had a core of players, you know, and when you want to start, you want to build offensive line, defensive line, and that looks like what he's doing here. Okay. So good start for him in Indiana. Yep. And obviously, who knows those JMU players better than him? He's not going to bring anybody there that's not up to the competition.
Right,
so
exactly.
I thought that was pretty cool to start. And then the other thing that was really unique, so we have those brothers. We talked about Minnesota. Yes. You know, their offense struggled this year, and then we said going into the bowl game they were going to struggle with their quarterback being out. Right. Well, we found out what happened with their quarterback, Ethan Kaliakmanis.
Okay. Good job.
Yes. They call him the Greek rifle.
Yeah.
Okay. Him and his brother both transferring to Rutgers. Okay.
I saw that.
Kaliakmanis was a four-star quarterback when he was recruited. Okay. Also 4 stars in the transfer portal. He was a top 20 quarterback in the nation when he was recruited. Going to Rutgers, being reunited with Kirk Shiraka, who was his coach when he was a freshman. His brother Dino Kaliakmanis is a 3-star wide receiver, so they're going together. I think it's huge for Rutgers. I really like what Greg Schiano is doing there. Mm-hmm. You know, are they ever going to be a Michigan, Ohio State, or even a Penn State? Probably not. But he's just building a solid team, a solid roster. He knows what he wants to do. I think this is a great addition. Yeah. Kirk Shiraka, I think, did really good with that offense this year. Mm-hmm. He was great in Minnesota. You know, back in 2019, I'm sure you remember when they had that great season. They upset Penn State. And he was the OC there. Came to Penn State, just didn't work out. I think he had one more year back in Mini, but they wanted to move forward. So he went to Rutgers, did really good this year, and he's bringing in some of his guys. And so I thought it was interesting, too. Brothers going together, a starting quarterback, potentially top 20 quarterback going to Rutgers. So that's huge for Rutgers.
For sure.
The last one I wanted to talk about, you know, I was saying how the portal was real quiet. It's been real quiet over the holidays for the Big Ten. Yeah. All of a sudden today, as we're getting ready, we're doing our research and getting ready to film, boom, big breaking news. As expected, Julian Fleming, the former 5-star number 1 receiver in the country, transferring from Ohio State to Penn State. He made it official today. So as a recruit, he was a 5-star wide receiver. Good, solid wide receiver there. Maybe didn't hit that high levels that some of their other guys did, but just a good guy to move the chains. Just a good, solid wide receiver. He's a 4-star in the portal, not quite that 5-star level, but I think this is a great pickup for Penn State. Yep. Penn State needs consistency out of that wide receiver room. Mm-hmm. They, in the bowl game, I don't think they had a catch by a wide receiver until maybe the third quarter or something like that.
It was definitely the second half because the announcers actually made comment about it.
Yeah. I'm thinking it was like 6 minutes into the third quarter or something crazy like that. So. They need to upgrade their wide receiver room. This is something that was expected. We talked about this before as being rumored, but he made it official today, and I think it's a great start for Penn State. It's a huge addition. So that's what I have on Big Ten transfers in the portal. What do you got, JY?
Yeah, I got about 6 teams I want to talk about, a few more than others, but I'm going to start with the one that we kind of have been questioning for a while. There was news coming right when the transfer portal opened or just before that Jaden Mayava was going to be entering the portal, and then nothing. Complete silence for weeks. You know, he played in their bowl game. Well, you sent me a text was it yesterday or the day before? He sends a letter to his coach and the university and his teammates and everybody, confirming that he is entering the transfer portal. So a big loss there for UNLV. Really breakout season for this young quarterback. I'll be interested to see where he goes and interested to see what kind of playing time he gets. We've talked about doing kind of a case study on certain players, both moving from the group of 5 to the power 5 and reverse of that, and seeing kind of, just cherry picking certain players and seeing what goes on. I'd love for him to be one of them.
Yeah.
We now know that Jaden is going into the transfer portal and likely leaving UNLV. I mean, I read his letter. It was pretty clear that he's leaving. It wasn't one of those, hey, I'm going to test it. It was pretty clear that he's looking to go somewhere
on to
else.
Bigger pastures.
Exactly.
Can I say something real quick about him? So you and I both agreed we were really happy that he stayed and did the bowl game.
Yes.
It was great. It was a good opportunity for him to showcase national television and all that. Now, I will say one of the drawbacks, because there's a lot of people that are kind of out there complaining about players opting out, transferring.
Right.
One of the drawbacks is he is a really exciting quarterback prospect. A lot of other teams have already locked down their
Sure.
He has less opportunities. If he would have left at the end of the season, he may have had more opportunities at some of those really big programs. So it's kind of a catch-22, and that's something players have to decide.
Right.
And what's better for them in their future. He got that chance to have one more game with his teammates, get a showcase bowl game, which is awesome. We loved seeing him with UNLV, but he's kind of behind the 8 ball now if he's going to move on to it. So that's just something to think about.
Well, and for him, it could be a case of maybe a Dante Moore type of situation where he's willing to go to a bigger program, take that back seat for a year or two. Because, again, he's young. He's got plenty of years to play. So he may be looking to move up, but not even in a starting role right away, but move into that. So who knows? I wish him the best. Another quarterback we talked about, Braden Shager from Hawaii, who was in the portal, has now withdrawn on December 30th, withdrew his name from the portal. That would have been a huge loss for Hawaii. Very, very solid quarterback down there with them. So it looks like he's going to be staying now in Hawaii. 2 other players. We've talked about both of these players, but I felt like I should bring them up again. Boise State, Eric McAllister, we knew he was in the portal. We said all signs look like he might be going back to Texas. I mentioned TCU. He is now going to TCU. I think that's a great fit. I think another player I would like to follow here to see how he transfers from, the number 1 star receiver at Boise State, one of the, top group of 5 teams, quite frankly. I know people are going to look at their record and say, oh, they're not top. Trust me, by the end of the season, they're one of the better group of 5 teams. And then Taylon Green, we already mentioned before, he's going to Arkansas. So a couple players here that I mentioned early on that I'm going to keep a tab on here. I don't know if we'll necessarily report on them, but I'm definitely going to keep a tab on some of these guys, see how things play out here over the next year or two. Another team we really haven't talked about yet, but I want to talk about them, Fresno State. So Damian Moore, the running back, who did not play this year at all, they really needed that star running back. I mean, I mentioned towards the end of the season how they're a little bit one-dimensional. Like Sherrod was serviceable, but he wasn't that star running back. Damian Moore, I think, would have been. When you look at what he did at Cal, again, he missed the entire season due to injury, and he's now back in the portal. So this will be his second time. He transferred from Cal to Fresno, didn't even get a game in at Fresno, and now he's looking to leave again. So I'm not really sure what that means for him. Maybe he's testing the waters. I don't know. But that would have been a big, if he was able to play this year, that would have been a big gain for Fresno State. Another one, Trey Watson, their tight end. He's going to Washington. He was their top tight end, had 38 receptions, 4 touchdowns this year. Really nice little release valve there for Keene. So it's a bit of a loss there. And then Raymond Scott, one of their linebackers, is also just entered the portal. So a little bit of turnover there with Fresno. I wouldn't say anything too major. As I said, Moore didn't play this year. So, yes, they're losing a talent, but they're not losing a starting talent for them this past year. Another team we haven't talked about, Utah State. But I have talked about how I really questioned their D, even coming into the season. I said, their D is going to struggle. They actually did okay. They did a little bit better, but they have gotten some upgrades. They got Will Schaefer, a linebacker out of Arizona State. They got Ricky Loloia, I guess is how you say it, a defensive lineman from Oklahoma State. Maseo Williams, a defensive lineman from Kent State. And Jaden Pearson, a safety from Utah. So, 3 players there coming from Power 5, we used to call Power 5 programs, to Utah State to try and beef up that defense. That's really what they need. They need to secure their defense. They can score points. They got to get people to stop scoring against them, however. Last team I want to talk about, we did a lot on them. Well, we didn't really give names, but we said San Diego State, obviously with the coaching turnover there, and what's going to happen. So a lot of the defensive players left, a lot of players in general, but more so on the defensive side. They had a defensive coach. They pull in an offensive coach. So let's look at what happened. They've had some players come in. Maybe one of the biggest names here, Jude Wolf, the USC tight end. He'll obviously be the replacement for Redmond, who was one of their leading receivers at tight end. So he left to Louisville. They're pulling the USC tight end, Jude Wolf, to come in. I think it's a possible upgrade there. So Redmond was great, but I think Wolf could be as good, if not better. And then they also are getting a tight end from Colorado, Michael Harrison. So kind of restocking the deck there, at least at the tight end situation. On defense, they get Zach Morris, a cornerback from New Mexico, and they get William Nemo, a safety from UCLA. UCLA had a solid defense this year. So trying to rebuild that defensive side after they lost a lot of players. Still a lot of work to do there for San Diego State if they're looking to take a step forward from this past season, at least in terms of wins and losses. I'm really anxious to see what happens with quarterback. Does Maeva possibly look to go to San Diego State? I don't know. But that would be a hole. I would think San Diego State is looking at who's available, trying to lure some players there. Certainly when you see, I mentioned some of these players going back to California, they're all from California. And these are California players that went someplace else to play, and either it didn't work out, they didn't get the playing time. Like, screw that, I'm going home, or at least closer to home. So a lot of kids in this transfer portal that have gone elsewhere, finding their way back to Cali. That one's the one that's the state that really stood out to me the most.
I want to say with San Diego State, I think they're doing a total rebuild. You mentioned going from more of like a defensive-minded coach to an offensive-minded coach, and also a completely different style of offense. Instead of that ball control, clock management, run the ball offense, they're going to an offense that's a little more open. So just a total complete rebuild there, and I'm hoping the fans come out and support them, give them some time. I don't know if you can expect great results in year one.
Right.
We'll see how that a lot depends on the quarterback. If they, if they get Maeva or someone that level, that'd be great. But hopefully the fans come out and support them, give them some time. The fans didn't like Brady Hoke.
No.
They didn't come out and support Brady Hoke. They got what they wanted. They got rid of Brady Hoke. They got an offensive coach. So our San Diego State fans out there, come out, support your team this year. Give them a chance to rebuild, and we'll see how it goes.
For sure. The only one I want to mention, I don't know if you have any others. We've been talking about FSU recently. Yeah. We obviously have followed the Beavs a lot. DJ was in the portal for a little while, maybe a little longer than we maybe thought he would be. We knew he was looking Florida. We knew all of that. It's confirmed now that he is transferring to Florida State University, so they get a replacement right away for that. Try to continue their success from this year, I would assume.
I think he was kind of looking at, he had multiple options he was looking at. He was looking at Florida State, he was looking at Miami. I think he may have visited both. I think we talked about that. Mm-hmm. And then he was also looking at the NFL.
Right.
This time of year, they get from the NFL, the GMs give them their draft review, draft stock.
Yeah.
Kind of show them where they're going to be. So, that's a great opportunity for him at Florida State.
Yes.
Great team this year. The only thing they were missing at the end of the season was their star quarterback. Mm-hmm. He can go in there and, if he can play well, he can have that team competing for national championship again and really get a stock up for the NFL.
Totally agree. Any other players you want to talk about?
No.
All right. Well, we'll keep on this. We're not going to do a weekly necessarily update on the transfer portal, but we're going to keep our eye on it. And we feel like there's enough movement. We'll do another one. Another thing we'd like to do, I have a friend that has an associate that does some legality types of things with the transfer portal. He kind of has been in it from the beginning. I'd really like kind of over the off season to take some time, bring him on, have some Q&A. Maybe he can answer some of our questions and give a good framework. So if you're interested in a little bit more in-depth transfer portal, not players' names, but just how is this all working? How has this evolved? How did we get to where we are? And maybe what's the future going to continue to look like as we go through this? That's something we may be doing here in the next couple months. I'd really like to set that up, maybe do a mini-series on that, and we'll see how that goes. So, hey, with that, we thank you for watching. We're going to have a pick episode coming out on the national championship game here really, really soon. And, of course, we're going to stay on the ACC FSU lawsuits. And with that, we'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.